has been a wonderful journey for me to interact with uh, very good artists, musicians, even the organizer, to understand various aspects of music and their journey in the music field. And the feedback I have been receiving since I started is really very encouraging. And as most of you know that this series was started just to understand the musical journey of each artist, because it differs from person to person. So the challenges what they faced, how their talim was with their guru, and how they have become gurus now and they are training their students, and many more aspects which are related to music field. Many challenges what we feel the artist face in music field. Such many artists, and in continuing that, this is the 12th episode of Musical Musings, and today I am very happy that one of the finest sitar players of our generation, Srimati Anupama Bhagwatji, is joining us. Without talking much, I would like to invite her so that we can talk to her more and listen to her experiences of being a musician. So without much ado, I would invite Anupama ji to this discussion. There is some issue in the connectivity, I feel. Namaste, Anupama ji.
Namaste. How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm also okay. Sound is okay?
Yeah, perfect. I hope I am audible to you.
Yeah. It was louder earlier. I don't know. Now it's a little... Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for making time and joining me on this conversation about your musical journey. So
thank you for having me. I have watched a couple of or more, maybe more interviews of yours, and you are doing such a great discussions that bringing out some really good knowledge and good awareness for music, basically through musicians.
Yeah, ultimately, as I keep on mentioning this point and stressing on this point, that audience see only 1 hour of performance and they go back home. They don't know what struggles we undergo. Sometimes very happy moments which may not be known to people. Sometimes very challenges we face. So that's the main reason to interact with musicians like you. And always I always mention this, that I normally don't ask journalistic questions because I'm not a journalist. I'm a musician, so my questions will be limited to only music and nothing else. So I'll begin with asking you. I know that you are from. Most people might not know this. I know that you are from Andhra Pradesh. But being from Andhra Pradesh, which is not a Hindustani classical field, how did you come to Hindustani classical music, being from that state?
So although our roots are from Andhra Pradesh, we are Telugu speaking, and My grandmother was trained in Carnatic Veena. Nagpur, like in his young age, and so my father also was born and brought up in Nagpur and Bhilai. So after the Bhilai steel plant was constructed, then my grandfather moved to Bhilai, and my entire upbringing was in Bhilai, which is in the north. And even my father, so of course we maintained our South Indian culture, and at home we used to listen to Carnatic and Hindustani. As I said, my grandmother used to play the Bobili Veena, and my father was trained partly in Carnatic, and then later on he was trained in Hindustani violin. So he played Hindustani. He plays still. I mean, not as a profession, as a passion. And similarly, my aunt, my uncle, they learned the sitar. So into the Hindustani, because it was again Nagpur and Bhilai, that influence was there. So, but since most of the families in South India, they have this tradition of learning. Not you take it as a profession, it is different, but you have to learn it just as you learn a language, is what our family tradition was as well. So I was also put in multiple things, So I actually started with violin when I was 5. I was playing a smaller violin, and then at the age of 9, I started with the sitar.
Your father learned from who? Violin?
So in Bhilai only, there were very good music teachers. My father learned from Sri Vyas, Kirti Vyas ji, and he is still teaching in Bhilai. And there is also a very senior sitar artist who is also my Guruji's senior disciple, Sri S.R. Shivlikar ji. So he also used to teach in a school. So he learned in, like, of course they had one-on-one lessons and group lessons as well. So that's how Bhilai was quite rich in music and culture, and it is still many people have learned through that culture.
Is Shivlekar any related to this violin player?
Yes. Praveen Shivlikar. Yes. So Shivlikar sir is, the sitar artist that I am talking about, he is Praveen ji's uncle, meaning his chacha ji. Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah. So he nearmost disciple, and so that's how all this was. It was a very small town. Bhilai is a very like a township kind of a thing. So everybody was they know each other, and everybody, there is a lot of cultural and music exchange for that matter.
So you can say that you found in the house that violin, and your father was playing violin as well as he had learned Carnatic Veena, and your grandmother was a Veena player. So so you had that basic background of music at home. So how did it happen that you went to Pandit Bimlendu Mukherjee ji, one of the greatest sitar player that India has ever seen actually? So how did that happen actually?
So I can just put in God's grace or my good fortune. So the way it happened was, as I said, I think when I was 9, my uncle was upgrading one of his sitars. So he gave his, it was a little smaller size sitar to me. Not a very baby one, but comparatively a little smaller sitar. So he thought maybe I can make use of that. At that point, I was trying out everything. Violin, of course, I was learning, but I don't know how I switched to sitar at that point. It really fascinated me, probably the sound and everything. So my father had requested one sitar teacher in the area again, Sri R.N. Vermaji, to come home and teach me. So I was learning for about 3.5 years or 4 years. I was learning from him, and I think I had started giving small concerts as well when I was 11 and a half. So at that point, sir said that she has a lot of potential, and whatever I can teach. I have already I have given that, and she should definitely try and learn from Mukherjee Sahab, who was of course it was like having Guruji in Bhilai was like an oasis in the desert. So he was the institution in itself, in a big institution. So I had of course heard of him, and when I Bhilai, as I said, it's a small place. We had a railway station there. So my father, we used to go in scooter, and I would stand in front. And at that point, the railway station, we would see Buddhaditya ji standing with the to go to Raipur, which was the closest radio station at that point to Bhilai. So when I was very small, I used to see that, and my father would tell me, see, this is Pandit Buddhaditya Mukherjee, and he, great sitar. So I would listen to the sitar and like that. So learning from Guruji was not at all something that I was dreaming of. But when we went there, then Guruji just asked me one question that so how committed are you? Because if I teach you, then I would want you to take it forward. And instead, if I teach somebody else instead of you, so I have to make sure that this should go further. It should not just stop you or something like that. You have to take it forward as such. So that meant that it was a much more serious commitment in itself. So I was about 12 and a half or so, and I didn't say anything, but in my mind I was kind of determined that this is what I have to do for my entire life. So that's how Sitar kind of...
Yeah, it's quite fascinating, because at 12 and a half years, to decide that, you want to pursue music, and that to sitar, and having challenged from your father that, you should take it up as a profession, then only I will make you to learn from PG. I mean, that's really amazing piece of, information that we could take it today.
So Guruji had asked. So my father and me, we went to Guruji, and at that point he had asked me. So if I am teaching you, then you have to take it forward. So coming from him, it was So I had to make a decision.
Correct.
At this point, I was not sure whether I will take it as a profession, but I knew that I would be with sitar forever. Correct. Is what I meant. Profession or not, that's a different story.
Correct. Right. So, how did the talim start? I mean, Guruji, because I understand, if I am not mistaken, the age gap must be quite wide between you and Mukherjee Sahab. I mean, when you were 12, I think he must have been 40 plus, if I am not mistaken.
No, even more. He was just about to retire. So he was about 60. So I think so. Yeah, he was still serving. He had a couple of years left, and he was still serving as a vice chancellor to Indira Kala Sangeet Vishwavidyalaya. So in the beginning, it was once in 2 weeks or so I would see him. Okay. Because he was still going to Khairagarh up and down, he would be doing. So whenever he got a chance, I would go to him. And at that time, there were many people actually visiting and learning from him. There was a lady from France. I think you must have heard Brigitte Menon. She used to learn from him. And there was another lady from Japan. She was learning, and another gentleman from France. So many people would be there, and he would be teaching. So I would sit through all those lessons, and then of course learning as well. So that was a real challenge. Till now I had learned basics and I knew how to handle the instrument, but then the actual music part, I mean, then suddenly it took a little time for me to absorb, because he was teaching from way up there and I was way down there. So that gap, not just age-wise, the intellect gap was quite a bit, and it is still, of course. What I mean is, from the point where he started, to grasp all that, it was a challenge. And he would just sing phrases and I had to just copy them on my sitar. And also at the time, I was not writing anything down. It was almost free flowing, talim. So every other day I would go and he would, take one rag. I think I started with rag Todi, with directly, no yaman, nothing. I mean, whatever, because it was a morning time that I had gone. So he said, "Chalo, Todi bajao." So I think I had known the Aro Avro of Todi, that's all. And after that, he just started singing the alap. But he was very patient. He would never be angry for making any mistake or besur or anything like that. He was very extremely patient that way. And meaning you could ask him. Of course, his personality was really, such that you would, out of respect, be afraid or be, I was very timid at least to ask even any question. And at that point, he would definitely always encourage me and say that you should ask questions. Why did I do this? Why did I play this note here and not that? And so he openly, or he would ask me questions which made me think, why this progression is in such a certain way, things like that.
This is also very interesting that normally we hear that, that generation gurus would be not very, very approachable. They'll be in their own cocoon and, always very strict. Normally we hear such stories, but this is really an amazing piece of information that we come to know that he was very...
he was a very, very different person, I would say, in spite of being from that generation of musicians. The vision that he had, the openness that he had for anybody and everybody. Basically, I haven't seen such personalities often, so and the way, as I said, he was an institution in himself. He had learned from many things, and not just sitar, he played multiple instruments. So he would share all those experiences of his learning from this particular ustad or that particular maestro, and how that happened. And he would discuss how. And another thing that happened was Guruji used to invite a lot of musicians in his, when he was serving Bhilai Steel Plant. He had actually made one place, like an auditorium he had through the Bhilai Steel Plant. He got it constructed so that people could come and perform in Bhilai. Otherwise, nobody would know that small place, basically. So, Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, Ustad Amir Khan Sahab, all the maestros would come, and in fact some of them had made debut performances in Bhilai, like Sonal Mansingh ji. She had, for the first time, her debut performance was in Bhilai. And Keli Charan Mahapatra ji, then all the musicians. In fact, Ustad Amjad Ali Khan Sahab was 14 when he had first performed in Bhilai. So since then, Guruji had done a lot of course, I was not born at that time, misfortune, but all those experiences Guruji used to share. So how the Ustads, and most of the Ustads, they would stay with Guruji at that point of time. And the discussions that he had, all that, he would openly share with all the students, and that was a learning in itself.
Yeah. Just 1 minute, Anupumaji. One question has come. Shazneen Hassan ji Madam, I will ask this question definitely. It will be asked in a little later stage because we are going step by step. So we are yet to come to Anupumaji's career as an artist. We are still in our student days. So we'll definitely ask. I will ask that question. Whatever you have taken, what you have here mentioned here. I know Anupumaji, as you just mentioned that. He had not just learnt sitar, he had learnt sarod, he had learnt sarangi, he had learnt vocal, so sur bahar. So and as I have read about him that he was from Imdad Khani Gharana, or the Etawah Gharana, which was earlier known as Etawah Gharana, then it was known as Imdad Khani Gharana. With legendary.
So, this is the story also that the first person to call it as Imdad Khani Gharana was my Guruji. Because Buddhaditya ji, when he started performing, Pandit Buddhaditya Mukherjee, when he started performing, in his it was written as Imdad Khani Gharana. The reason being, Guruji said that of course the place is important, but also the Ustad who had given it a style or a name, he should also be recognized. And that Ustad's legacy should be recognized. So that is why he decided to just call it as Imdad Khani Gharana, which we all follow now and we all call it the same way.
And I just read about the Gharana itself. I mean, it has a long history and so many stalwarts have come in that Gharana, whether it is Vilayat Khan Sahab, Pandit Buddhaditya Mukherjee Sahab, हमारे उस्ताद शाहिद परवीन जी, so many people have graced this Gharana. The next generation, like you. There is another Gharana which is Maihar Gharana. Pandit Ravi Shankarji's Gharana is there. I would like to talk more about Imdad Khani Gharana. What is the main ingredients that Imdad Khani Gharana has? And which has some differences from difference which we can make it is different from the Maihar Gharana. If I am not mistaken, are these only two Gharanas in sitar or more Gharanas?
No, there are other also. There is Senia Vishnupur Gharana, so from which Pandit Manilal Nagji and of course other, and then there is Senia Maihar. There is a combination of Senia Maihar Gharana is there. So, and then purely Vishnupur Gharana, that is also there. So, there are, other forms of, and then of course there is a Darbhanga Gharana, which was also, popularized by Pandit Balram Pathak ji. So, these are different schools of music. As far as I know, I am also not very much aware, but there are definitely many more Gharanas. And these two being primarily popularized by Pandit Ravi Shankar, and Imdad Khani Gharana was popularized only by Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, and of course his children and the entire. So as far as I am concerned, my knowledge of Gharana is only through my Guruji. So for me, my limitation, or you can call it my Gharana knowledge is limited to my Guruji. So, but of course, listening to all the stalwarts, all the musicians of the Gharana, what I have understood is definitely Ustad Imdad Khan and then Ustad Inayat Khan Sahab had already had a particular style of playing, which was, quite robust, and there had been elements of Gaiki at that point as well. Meaning the gamaks, or you can say the memes, were a little different, or it was a lot. Surbahar influence was also there in their playing as well, because they used to play both Ustad Inayat Khan Sahab and Imdad Khan Sahab used to play Surbahar and sitar both. So so that influence was very much there. And when Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, when he he took up the sitar, he made many changes as well. learnt about the Ustad from, from the books and from many other maestros' story, his biography. I need not reiterate it, but he made quite a bit of, a significant change in the playing style as well. Now, when Guruji was learning from Vilayat Khan Sahib's father, Ustad Inayat Khan Sahib, so at that point also, Ustad Inayat Khan Sahib used to teach, the different people or different students in Kolkata, and that's how Guruji had learned from him. So the aspects of the Gaiki aspects or the sitar Baj was anyway passed on to Guruji, Ustad Inayat Khan Sahib. But the changes that Vilayat Khan Sahib had made in the Gaiki approach, that even Guruji had followed in the similar manner. Also, he added a few more things, like Guruji thought that if we are playing Thumri through sitar, and if we are playing Kajri and Chaiti through sitar, why not Tappa? So he encouraged Pandit Bhadraditya Mukherjee to play Tappa. Alap Chari, so in more khayal format, he could not necessarily the Alap Jod Jhala format, but also the where we are doing the badhat in the framework of the bandish of the gat itself, of the slow composition. So these kind of things my Guruji had also taught us, and that's how we now learned those, and we are trying to follow as much as possible. So I see, apart from the stylistically, everybody is different. Even within the gharana, you will find every individual is different. Like, you have heard just now, you mentioned Pandit Bhadraditya Mukherjee, Ustad Shahid Parvez ji. Both styles are very, if you see, there will always be a difference, because ultimately it is an individual personality which should be reflecting through the music. And many people say that my music also sounds very different. And sometimes they say that it is sounding quite similar. So there are different ways. But what my Guruji was always emphasizing was that, he would expose us students to many different forms of improvisation, of approaching, of a whole performance. But at the same time, he would always encourage what I am absorbing and I am reflecting through my music. So he would always emphasize that the personality should reflect in music. So he would always say that if you are honest to yourself, and if you let the music flow through you, then you will not need to do anything, I have to do something different to create my space or anything. It will automatically be different, because you are being yourself. So because I am an individual and I will be portraying my music, right? So that way the music, but we, of course, system or the styles that we follow is, we want to just restrict to any particular this thing, but in fact I think it is more so that we don't get lost in this world of music. So there is so much information, but eventually if we follow a certain path, then the journey becomes easier to understand, right? If we stick to one or two paths or something like that, then we can discover the music a little bit easier, rather than doing this also. Three things is what I feel, and that's how the Gharana system has flourished, and that's why people try and follow one particular this thing. Of course, the Gharana also should be evolving, and it has evolved. It has changed a little bit from the time that it had originated. So,
there is one question here which is related to the Gharanas, what we are talking. Do you think Gharanas were necessary for sitar to remain popular in the long run? If not,
sorry,
do you think Gharanas were necessary for the sitar to remain popular in long run? If not, do you think the concept will be as important as it is now in future? I think Gharanas necessary form. I can answer that, But the thing that here I would like to add my own question into this. In vocal, if you see, nowadays one person, one vocalist singing one is very rare now. It's always a mixture of 2 or 3 gharanas because the talim they have received. But when I listen to even in tabla, it has happened. It has happened that people play whether it is Punjab or Lucknow or Hazarada, so they mix it. So I think a sitar or a sarod, it is always that they mention only one gharana.
In spite of the fact that they mention one gharana, but nowadays, if you see current situation in music, even instrumental music has been influenced by artists. So, I mean, although you can say that you belong to Maihar Gharana, but you can still be playing a lot of the style that probably, other ustads of other gharanas have played. So that is there. But I think what is missing is open acknowledgement to that. Maybe it is not as popular as vocal and tabla, but it is. I mean, it is probably, you can say, not announced, but it is there is a lot of gray area where people can say, oh, it could be a little bit of Maihar, it could be a little bit of Imdad Khani, it could be a little bit of here and there. So that is there. I mean, you can see that not everybody. I mean, how many people you see are playing the same style as although Pandit Ravi Shankar had so many students and so many so the same style as he used to play, right? So there is always a mix of, and how many people are playing the same style as what Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab was playing, or for that matter Pandit Nikhil Banerjee. So I think there is still a lot of debate about that, you can say.
Yeah, maybe because of as more and more you listen to more and more ustads, then you get influenced by them. Obviously, you may.
Yes, definitely. And you cannot, I have received sometimes, sometimes my music sounds like Nikhil Banerjee or Pandit, somewhere of that style, which I would not greatly attempted in my music or anything, but it would have been probably, So I think some of the musicians, they have so much impact. Like if I listen to a lot of Ustad Amir Khan Sahab, or Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, or some other vocalist, then that influence would automatically come in my playing.
Correct. I would like to ask one question about when you were learning. You were learning from his father. So was there any situation that he used to teach both of you together, or Udadiji would he used to learn separately, or any kind of how was your interaction with Udadiji?
Oh yeah. So at that time when I was learning, it was early 80s, late, and Pandit Budayatiji was at peak of his so busy. He was extremely busy at that time, always touring. So we would not get to see him. So suddenly we will see the sitar arrived and has new, and sometimes we would listen, and still after he came back, there would be some time before we could listen to his riyaz. Upstairs it was his room, downstairs was the music room where we used to learn. So there were many instances when Guruji would suddenly, after my class, we could hear the his sitar sound, and Guruji would tell me to go upstairs and listen to his riyaz. So I would sit and listen. So while he was doing riyaz and I was sitting watching him doing riyaz, he would give certain tips, maybe in playing chala, or he would, very open and sharing personality. I mean, what can I say about such great people? Never had any inhibitions or any, or so. He would just give a small tip, which even now it would help me and also many other. When I am teaching to some other people, I am also able to give that small suggestion here and there. And Guruji used to do the Saraswati Puja quite elaborately. And at that time, we all used to, perform. And of course, the highlight would be Pandit Bhadadji's performance. It would be at home. We would be just mostly the students. So that kind of interaction, and I have holdings as well from him. So yes, there is. So of course, I'm still very, very, with respect, quite afraid of his personality. So that is always.
Yeah. I mean, Buddhadityaji's, personality is like that. Sometimes it's very difficult to, because he's very serious musician. He's very. I had an privilege of interacting with him quite a few times. I had only good experiences because I had it only few times. So quality musician he is. We are too small to talk about such legends. It's really, you could hear to him so regularly because of your association with Pandit Bimlendra Mukherjee Sahab. I would like to ask now about you as an artist. My knowledge of sitar is not that good, but whatever I have heard, I have heard many sitar players, including Ravi Shankar ji. In fact, I couldn't listen to Lai Khan Sahab, but YouTube and all. But again, Shahid Parvez ji or Pandit Bhadaditya ji or you or many sitar players I have heard. One of the telling things which as a musician I have seen, especially in your gharana, is the choice of rag. Many rags which you play are not commonly heard in sitar. It's more heard in vocal. For example, I can give you like Tilak Kamod. Tilak Kamod is a lot more instrumental, but not Tilak Kamod. Tilak Kamod mainly it is vocalist who. What might be the reason that because of the vocal training or because of the Gaikiyan which is existing in the because of that these ragas are more often there?
I think so. Yes, definitely that had an influence. And as I said, there were certain ragas which were like Ustad Imdad Khan Sahab and Ustad Inayat Khan Sahab. They had kind of mastered a few ragas which became the gharana rags, like Sohini, then Bhatyar, Yaman, so there is this interesting anecdote because I told you that I studied Guruji with Todi. So then we went to some other rag, maybe I don't remember Kalingada or some other rag. We went into most of the morning ragas, and then suddenly one day Guruji. I had gone in the evening, and he was teaching Yaman. Guruji was teaching Yaman to somebody else, and I had just entered, and then he said, "Chal baja." So I said, "What should I play?" So I said, "Yaman baja." So I said, "Okay." And then he started singing, and he was finding that I had not, I was having some difficulty in reproducing some of the phrases which I could not imagine Yaman in that way. So then Guruji said, "तू मेरे से यमन नहीं सीखी है?" So I said, "नहीं, अभी तक नहीं सीखी हूँ." So he said, "अरे यमन तो घराने का राग है, चलो अभी यमन बजाएंगे." And that so some small things, so Yaman was elaborated like anything in our gharana. And I think more than the variety of ragas, it was the emphasis was always that one raga be played so many times and still be made to heard as different rag. So that was, I think, a kind of hidden, unsaid principle going in the gharana is what I can feel. But what you suggested, that vocal ragas had been, taken quite and made popular in our gharana, I feel.
Okay. Now, for so many years, big festivals, and also in abroad. You tour abroad a lot. Career graph. This question, along with that, Shaheen Hassan has asked that Pranam Anupama ji, I would like to ask, what has been biggest challenge that you have faced taking up music professionally as a female, given the societal biases that persist? So, if you wish to answer this question, the biggest challenge.
I don't know about. Not sure about as a female. I mean, initially when I had that it was it didn't even occur to me that the male-female bias could also be there. When I had started performing, and up until a long time, it was always just a struggle in just performing. I mean, just making it as a profession, be it musical challenge or be it professional challenge, meaning getting the concerts, or because I was, again, as I said, that I was a first generation musician. Nobody in my family had taken it as a profession, so I was the first one. So I didn't even know how things worked, so how people managed invited, or so when I started, it was just through some competitions, and South Central Zone Cultural Center, and these standard organizations where I had entered as a competition and then as a performance, and from that performance came another, and from that another, and even when I went to US, at that point also, again, to establish in the US, it took some time because nobody would know of me as such. So that was more challenge. Of course, I never kind of paid attention whether that if there was any discrimination, then was it because of male female, that part, or was it just because the fact that I'm probably not as or not belonging to a particular lineage or particular this thing. So I cannot pinpoint whether it was a gender, just any other situation as such. So I'm not sure. Even now, at least I don't want to believe that it is because of gender that if anything is happening in that manner.
Sorry. Maybe during your time, there might have existed these gender biases, but now at present generation, I don't think so. There can be anything.
Correct. But what I always was bothered, or that people always try to put you in a bracket of female musician or a female sitar player, or backhanded compliments like, oh, for a female you are very good, meaning as if mentioning that, okay, females are not supposed to be good, but for a female you are okay.
Yeah.
You accept. So those kind of backhanded compliments would definitely be and always being showcased as the star player. So that is something definitely I would say that that is probably not necessary in the current situation. In any field it is like that. I mean, I don't know, lady pilot. So half of the planes are being flown by females only. So now nobody is saying, but in the initial times, probably, there were people who would say that, oh, there is a female pilot playing. So even now when ladies are driving the cars, there is always a joke, oh, definitely it must be a lady driving. That is why that is going like this. So that is still there. It is a society, I would say, social thing that, I mean, as a musician, I don't know how we can actually. So the social mentality which has
Correct.
to change in general.
Correct. But apart from, I'm not asking it from a female or a male perspective, but apart from this, what challenges you face to make a career in? I mean, everyone has faced challenges. There cannot be anything which comes on the platter. Maybe for few privileged, but not for all. Definitely, 80-90% of the artists who are in music industry, in our Hindustani classical music, they have all struggled. They have all struggled, and they have come up to a certain level because of their grit, their tayari, their talim from good guru, and their own hard work. And obviously, I would count here one more point is support from the family. So
Yes.
definitely, because when you face challenges, when you face rejections, I can tell you, then you definitely need family. Not just when you learn, your family will support you for, but when you have, sometimes you have some with reference to your career. So at that time, you need the family. So how important is family support during not just during the negative times, but overall support? I'm asking, especially when you're because you have to manage so many things.
Yes. So I mean, you said it right. Family support. Without family support, it is absolutely not possible. And that part also. In fact, my Guruji had said this thing while in one of the discussions initially that once you get married, what if that person doesn't want you to play? So will you stop it? So I had to make sure that I'm marrying a person who would let it continue. Of course, ours was an arranged marriage, and my husband, his support is tremendous, I would say. And when we were in US because of his job, I would come every year for 4 months at least to be in India to learn from Guruji, and every year I have come, and he would stay there alone from his so and let me continue in what I'm doing. So for sometimes even 5 months, sometimes I had stayed in India continuously. So not just my husband, my in-laws, everybody have, for that matter, have supported my journey. And of course, my parents were always there to support me from the childhood. They were anyway, but for the for my in-laws also to support was a blessing for that matter. And I think the fact that the situations, the difference, my major challenge which I faced was not having a fixed base in a place. So as I said, I from Bhilai, after my marriage, I had to go to US, and then from US also we were in different cities. Not like I was in one place. So normally you would see that musicians they have to have a base so that they can build or they can. So for me that was a little bit of a challenge. You can say that I was not belonging to any particular place until I moved to Bangalore a few years back. So now I know that Bangalore for good. So that was that challenge. Again, making a music known. So for social media, of course, nowadays it is very easy for you to be putting up your music and everything. I would say when I was in the US, and at that time YouTube was, but I was not as savvy, and probably I did not go all that deep into social networking. Even now I am not that savvy, but I'm better than what I was probably. So so that being said, it was purely word of mouth. Purely, and some people who would have heard my music. So to get a concert, and people would tell me a lot of dreadful stories that for a concert you have to do this, you have to do that, and I would just refrain from those were stories that would really frighten. I was really frightened to even think, and then I would go and ask Guruji that why is it so much like this? So Guruji would say, no, you just do your work, and then that time he gave an example also that like a rose doesn't go and tell that you have to. I have fragrance or anything. You have to just work towards your music and be like as much possible. You have to just go as a of course it will be noticed. And I remember also the similar Pandit Bhimsen Joshi ji, I had gone and Guruji only said that you are going to Pune for a concert. I had gone, so just meet Pandit ji and take his blessings. So he was not very well at that point, but one statement he said, ये आसमान बहुत बड़ा है, इसमें सबको मिलता है. So that statement I just held on to, that I will get what I'm, and nobody can take away my share of music. These things, whether however much I can blame politics for that, it's just these are just but yeah. Sorry. So that one statement stayed with me.
True, very true. Anumaji, I think thoughts match a lot in this matter. Even I am of the same opinion that whatever is written in our destiny will get it, come what may. And what it is not written in our destiny, it will not come how much ever try you want to. But you said that you did not have a base, a base, a settled base where you can, be there and you can build your own fan base, or you can have more and more contacts. But I think your music is so good, as somebody has Mr. and has written here. In today's times of rising artists and spontaneous flow of newcomers here, you have set a benchmark of yourself, and that is what separates you from other artists. I think it is really true, because even though you did not have a base, or you might have got a name or fame little later in your age, but I think that would stay with you for a longer time than getting a name very early age. Then we are too small to talk about this, but a simple example in front of our eyes, Pandit Venkatesh Kumar ji. In 10, 12 years back, very few people knew him. 15 years, maximum 15 years back. But today, any major conferences you take, he has to be there. He almost at his 55 years of age, he got the name and his fame and the concert. So I totally agree, and I think because of your music, the quality of music that you have learned, the quality of music you present, the quality of music you have got in yourself, definitely will take you to, I think, greater heights. What I feel.
So here I want to just mention one thing. When you said that the success or the fame or recognition, it can come at different times. So my Guruji used to tell me this thing that has also helped me. So I'm just sharing that. Yeah. He used to say that jaldi se sab, if you get everything very early on, that it may or may not stay with you for a long time. Instead, if you get small, but if you for a long time, then that is something that you should look for. And as I said, I'm not really worried about what am I receiving, or because I'm really enjoying my journey as a musician and discovering. And I have mastered this art or anything. We are still in the learning phase, is what I feel. So then maybe at a different juncture, it will something will click or whatever. So, but I'm really thankful that even now people are recognizing and people are appreciating and as the Himanshu ji has said that they think I can set a benchmark. I'm really fortunate that somebody has thought of that, but I don't know. It's all because of my the internal what strength that Guruji has given, or rated and not getting disappointed. Those are the things that probably help you.
I mean, I totally agree with you, and I also, because I am also last 35 years now, and I also feel that we should be in a position to take failure and success at equal measure. We should not get overjoyed when we get some award, or when we perform in a bigger stage, and we should not get disheartened also, because ultimately life you will have both negatives and positives. It's the same in the music field also, and certainly I think we had a very good conversation today. I think we are just reaching our 1 hour slot of Instagram. So thank you so much, Kumari. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And one thing I would like to inform our viewers, when I talked to Anupumaji and invited her for this discussion, she said one thing which really I think shows how good student she is. That she said, "My story begins and ends with my Guru." I think if students of today's generation, if they can have that kind of devotion and dedication to Guru, I think your music will definitely reach to more and more. So this was a very good statement. Even I could, even I am like that. That I'm always related to. But people should know that this is what your thought process is. So thank you once again, Anupumaji, for taking.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you and discussing different aspects of our. We are all together in this boat in this journey. So it was very nice talking to a musician in this manner.
Thank you so much, and I thank all the viewers for joining us today. If people are not able to watch this interview live, it is on the IGTV after the interview of musical musings in a day or two. So thank you very much, all the viewers, and thank you, Anupumaji, once again. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.